Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I thought we could draw Derpy Tiger from K-Pop Demon Hunters. I have quite a few nieces and they're all massive fans of K-Pop Demon Hunters, so they've been asking me for quite a while to make an attempt at drawing Derpy Tiger. So I thought, let's give that a try this week. Okay, so we'll move that out of the way. You can of course take screenshots or just Google image search if you want a picture of Derpy Tiger yourself. Needless to say, he's all over the internet, so finding a reference picture shouldn't be too hard to find. We're going to be using our usual materials. We've got a charcoal pencil and some regular artist charcoal, and you might need a putty rubber. Of course, you can use regular pencils, that's not a problem, but I find for speed drawing, pastel pencils like this and charcoal are a little bit easier to use. And of course, as always, so you don't get anxious drawing, never work on a clean sheet of paper. You don't need to worry about making a mess or ruining anything. Let's get started. Now, for Derpy Tiger, I would say the best thing to start with would be his eyes. He has absolutely fantastic eyes. So we will roughly work out where they're going to be positioned. So if we're working from the centre of the sheet here, the eyes will be a little bit above there, maybe around about here. So at the moment we're just working out roughly where everything goes together, just to get a rough idea of the shapes. The eyes come down a fair bit, perhaps around here. So the nose will be about here. We've got it's almost like a Cheshire Cat sort of smile about here. Now you'll notice with the eyes, Derpy Tiger, the smile comes up to right beneath the eyes, which makes them incredibly cute and incredibly creepy at the same time. So just working out roughly, these are the sides of the mouth. He's got his curvy fangs which go about here. Can probably make the eyes a bit bigger still. And sides of the mouth go to about here. Now, of course, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. We're just working out roughly where everything goes. He's got the ears about here or thereabouts. Now his eyebrows, he's got quite expressive eyebrows that come up to about here. And then you've got the additional stripes roughly here, and he's got those three distinctive spots. Now, having a quick look at this, I think again the eyes could be even bigger still, but we're just roughly mapping it out at the moment. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're not here to attempt to produce a masterpiece. It's just a quick, enjoyable sketch. So we can always go back and refine it later on in the process. And he's got shoulders which come out about here and here. We can curve a little bit. I think that tapers down a bit more there. He's got this, obviously, his amazing chunky paws which come down to about here. Let's see. The proportions aren't quite right, but we can go back and refine that as we get further on. Again, one of the benefits of working in charcoal is that it's very forgiving, especially if you're a beginner, and you can go back and rework areas and refine certain details. So we've got the foreclaws roughly here, and if we've got time we can perhaps include the plant pot that he's continually knocking over about here. So that's roughly mapping out. I just realised you probably can't actually see that in the drawing. So we will pan out just a little bit, just to bring that into the frame. There we go, that's a little bit better. Apologies for that. Okay, so we've got it roughly mapped out. We can work out the proportions a little bit better now. I'm thinking perhaps the head could be slightly broader. I think with the eyes being bigger, they'll come out slightly more to the side. Perhaps over here. And then I can taper out the cheekbones a little bit more. Similarly at this side, I think I would bring it out perhaps a bit more. Because he does have tiny little rounded cute ears, which go about there. I think that's starting to look a little bit better. The chin is perhaps a bit more pointy than I've made him there. Can make his mouth a bit bigger as well. Again, we're not looking for perfection. We just want to draw something that looks pretty cool and has a little bit of character and personality. Just trying to have a bit of fun here. Okay, there we are. So more or less working out the shape of where everything fits together. And of course there's a couple of stripes here and here. It fades into the background a little bit, so what you can do for a bit of visual interest, we'll refine it a bit more towards the end, but just draw an imagined horizon. In the film, obviously this is him as he's coming out of the foliage, those trees and plants around him. Whether or not we've got time to fill that in a bit more, we'll see, but we can just put in a bit of shade in there for a bit of visual interest in the background, just to have him stand out a little more. There we go. Okay, now we can work out roughly the detail in his eyes. He has huge round eyes. Roughly drawn pupils, as you can see in the original picture, they're almost sort of kite shaped the way they taper. I'm just working roughly with the charcoal just now, so it doesn't have to have a perfect sharp edge. We're just trying to make sure the lines are mostly accurate. Now, drawing eyes can be quite a challenge for a lot of people. One of the things that really you should focus on when you're looking at eyes, and we'll focus on this one just now because it's looking a little bit better than that one. That needs a bit of tidying up. I'll use the charcoal pencil to emphasise some of these details. One of the keys to drawing an eye is, for each eye that you draw, for every character, for every person, the outline will be unique to most people. So you have to really look carefully and focus on the curves surrounding the eye, as well as the angles of the corners. Now with Derpy Tiger, you will notice if you look back at the reference image, the corner of this eye is, I would say, roughly 2/3 of the way up. So if you imagine a line at the side of his eye, it's about 2/3 of the way up. It's the corner of the eye, and it is almost a perfectly diagonal line here, but here it kind of curves in slightly like that, and then it curves round at the bottom of the visible part of the eye, then it curves back up slightly and round to the left, and just at this part it's almost like a straight line, almost. A tiny little curve here. Then a diagonal, almost straight line here. There's a slight curve here, very slight. And then it goes up again at a bit of a diagonal angle. And then there's a more rounded curve up here to bring it all together. And can probably go a bit more out towards this side. There we are. Now, Derpy Tiger has quite a distinct outline on his eyeballs, so we can go for that with a thicker line. This will be different for every style of drawing that you work on, but in this particular character there is quite a strong outline on the eye. You won't get that in every character that you draw, but in this particular one it's quite noticeable. And from here we can notice that the visible part of the eye kind of goes to round about here. He has very, very round eyes. Even by the standards of most animated characters, very distinct round eyes. That's partly what makes him so cute, and partly what makes him quite so derpy. Now what I would do is I would actually enhance that curve down there a little bit. Curve that round slightly more. I'm just going to smudge out some of this charcoal. Again, this is where charcoal really comes into its own. It's very forgiving, and you can move lines out the way that you don't necessarily want, and the charcoal pencil stays behind. So we can refine that slightly more. Okay, what I'm actually going to do is tighten this line up a bit. I think that diagonal line should go a bit further to the right. Very slight, but with eyes, a subtle change can make a massive difference. There we go. And the pupil is slightly left of centre. If you look at the reference image, again I've got that distinct kite shape. And what you'll notice if you look closely, in the corner of the pupil there's a little white dot here. So what we'll do is very, very faintly trace a slight outline around there. We can go back over this with a white pastel pencil towards the end. We'll see if it needs it, but sometimes if you're working on coloured paper, or if you've gone over a bit too many times and the paper's slightly discoloured and you want it to be pristine white, you can use a white Conte pencil, a bit like this one, and go in and lift detail to make it a bit more stark white. Again, it's better to do that at the very end so you're less likely to smudge over it, but it's something we can keep in mind for later in the process. Now I'm just going to curve that out a little bit more. Now I think I can probably get away with making the pupil a little bit bigger. Let's curve it out a little bit more there. I'll just fill that in there just now. And there's a distinct circle that goes around the eye. Now we've got to be very careful. I'm just going to dot it out just now, because one thing you don't want to do at this point is a harsh, sharp outline, especially if you don't draw the circle entirely correctly, because getting a circle to look right can be quite difficult. You need a steady hand. So we're going to very gently, just do very subtle little dots, and gradually map out the outline of a circle. There we are. And we'll leave that there just now. We can go back and rework it if there's time, but it gives you an idea of the overall shape. Now what I would say, with the eye having a sort of kind of gradual lightening towards the centre, you can shade it a little bit in the corners. These would be lines going towards the centre, and it's lighter in the centre, obviously. So just have lines going that way, and what we can do is just gently tap it with a fingertip, just to smudge it, just to soften it. There we are. We can go back in with the putty rubber later on in the process and try to refine the highlights a little bit more, because we want it to be a lot. Just be careful not to rub out the circle, just to brighten that part up a little bit and make it pop a little bit more. There we are. Again, we can go back in later in a lot more detail, and similarly the corners of the eyes will be shaded to be a bit darker. We'll maybe go over that later with the pastel pencil, the Conte pencil, however you call it. That gives you a rough idea of how Derpy Tiger's eye might look. Okay, and again we'll go over here and do roughly the same with the other eye. Eyes are usually the best part to start with on a face, partly because they're one of the most difficult parts. So if you get the eyes right, the rest of it will be relatively simple by comparison. And it also means if you spend a lot of time doing the other parts of the drawing, if you mess up the eye and you feel like it can't be fixed, well, better you get it wrong at the start than at the end, because it means you've got less that you have to rework. So we're just curving the eyeball around there, and again we're just roughly having the corners of the eyes meet up. Now with natural subjects like an animal or a person or a plant, you'll get subjects that look roughly symmetrical, butterflies or even a face with the details either side, but you'll very rarely get a perfect mirror image. There might be a tiny little bit of variation, but if you're just roughly sketching out, then you can roughly gauge what one side looks like based on the other. So again, with the eyes, there won't be a perfect mirror image, but roughly it'll be the exact same as that, but in reverse. But one key difference that you'll notice is the irises, because we've got the little highlight on the side of the eye here under the shape of the pupil. It will be the same on this side. It won't be a mirror image, because the light is hitting from this direction. It's kind of coming from above and slightly down from this side. So the light will hit the eye coming from the same direction. It will look completely wrong if you did a straightforward mirror image and the highlight was on the other side of the eye. There are probably some applications of it, but it would probably just make Derpy Tiger look more cross-eyed and more derpy than he's supposed to look. So just draw the curve of the eyeball here, because you'll notice with the eyeball you've got that continuous curve that comes all the way around here. It is almost like his eyeballs are popping